everyone, today is part 2 in a 4-part series of my first 4 deals within 3 years. The idea here is to get you accustomed to understanding how a deal works from beginning to end, and you could learn from some of the pain points as well as some of the rewards that I've had. My name is Ariel Herrera with the AnalyticsAriel channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. If you enjoy learning about analytics, data, and get some practical advice into real estate, then please subscribe to this channel. As well, if you want to hear more deep dives, then please like this video. All right, let's get started. Awesome. So I'm going to be touching deal number 2 in Detroit, Michigan. And right now I'm on Stessa's homepage. This is how I track the properties that I currently own, as well how I'm able to see when my properties increase in market value. So let's get right into it. Property number 2 is called Deep Dish Drive, and I'll explain how I got that nickname. We're going to be covering the setup, how I got my finances together, the target of deciding where to invest out of state, the action of actually talking to a property manager, getting the deal closed, and then reflection on some points that I've learned since having this deal. If you're not already aware, my why is that I used to commute 2 hours each way to New York City as a data scientist working in the financial industry, and it was very taxing to do this. And it made me think, why did I finish my bachelor's degree a semester early? Why did I rush to get a master's degree? Why did I live at home for a longer period than most, all just to be sitting on this bus? So with a lot of time to think, I realized I want to be able to have control, to spend time with my family, and to be there for them if they ever need it. So I looked up many different strategies of financial freedom, and the one that spoke to me was real estate. Now, getting my finances together, that's the first step when you're looking to acquire a property. And in this case, I was looking to get a property that was an investment, meaning I had to put 25% down, which is a large amount of change, especially when you're doing it on your own. So I need to have a good credit score, low debt to income ratio, I don't have too many loans, and I have that savings for the down payment. Now my problem was I didn't have the savings initially, but I resolved this by house hacking my first deal. So the mortgage was $1,880 and I was only paying $580 of it due to house hacking with my boyfriend as well as his cousin. And we did this through room rental. Now that I had the actual cash to be able to put down for my first out-of-state investment property, I had to think, what is my strategy behind it? So I decided that I want to go to buy and hold. I'm not looking to do a fix and flip. I don't have a team anywhere else to help me out. And I want to build wealth for the long term. So by going buy and hold, I'm going to put down a traditional amount of 25%. And for the house that I was looking for, I wanted to do a duplex so that just in case one side of the unit or the building couldn't pay, then the other side likely could and cover some of that disparity. I was looking to have 2-bed to 1.5 baths at least for each unit, at least 1,000 square feet, at least 1,900 and up, turnkey, which at this point I'm still not comfortable with working with contractors. I don't really know what I'm talking about at this point, and I'm going out of state, so I don't have the trust yet in a team. Turnkeys for me is the way to go. I also want to have a property that has a backyard, parking, no HOA, washer dryer in unit, and is vacant. This is something, reflecting back, I might not be as stringent on now, having learned about the binder strategy from Dion Talks and hearing about how having tenants already in the space could work. But at this moment, I'm not that skilled, I don't feel comfortable with it, and I want to go into a property that does not have any previous tenants. Now, because I have to put 25% down for getting this duplex, the max that I can actually afford, what I've saved up, is $50,000. So it really limits what kind of properties I can get and completely takes out a large chunk of New Jersey, which is the state that I'm from, to invest in. So I'm looking at prices of duplexes that range between 100 to 150K. And the area itself that I want to invest in is something that has a good rent to own ratio. So a lot of the times neighborhoods that have more people that own in the neighborhood, there's more pride because they own their property and they want their neighborhood to look nice. So you sometimes get better lawns and just a better overall feel. So this is something that I considered. I want it to be 15 minutes to a downtown area. I want the property to be ideal for someone who's a working professional. So in this case, it needs to be close to where jobs are. Second, I know for this price, I'm probably going to have a property that's not an A class, like it's not going to be doctors and lawyers living in it. However, I don't want to be in a super crime area, so I don't want a C neighborhood. So I'm looking for something kind of in between. And then I also am willing to take something that's a little cheaper because there is long-term appreciation, possibly based on articles and just digging into the news of things that I've read. Once I'm able to put these things together, the best that I've seen for cities that actually have starting to have growth and have some large companies that have recently moved there, like Rocket Mortgage and more, I decided that Detroit is going to be the way to go. So I actually had my cousin who her fiance already started to consider investing in Detroit. So I did get to piggyback off of him and utilize some of his contacts. Never got to talk to him if he ever made any deals happen, but it did initially get my mind racing about Detroit. So as I look into Detroit, I realize there's a lot of bad pockets, but there's some good pockets. So the city, as you could see, is right across from Canada towards the bottom. And there's some neighborhoods up top where I have circled that do have kind of a suburban feel, but still only 15 minutes from downtown, and there is some pride in ownership. So these are the ones that I want to target. Now there are properties that are duplexes that go as low as 50K, but those are in C neighborhoods or possibly D, and that's something that I rather not risk. I'm not going to just jump and buy a property without seeing it, at least from the outside. So me and my boyfriend went to Detroit to actually visit it, see what's going on in the neighborhoods, talk to some of the locals, and it was a great experience. So coming off the flight, I wanted to go and be like a local as much as possible to get a feel as to how the city is. So instead of taking the usual, an Uber back to the Airbnb, we actually took public transportation, which was super smooth and easy. We also went to the Giants versus Lions game. I'm a huge football fan for those that don't know. Unfortunately, Giants lost, which is very common these last several years. And we had deep dish pizza, which took 45 minutes to make, but was actually really good. Hence why I call this property deep dish. Now for property evaluation. So I graduated from just looking at two metrics, what the mortgage plus other payments would be for the monthly payment, and then looking at the rent estimate and subtracting the two. I actually took it a little bit further by downloading a duplex spreadsheet, which I'll be sharing in a later video. And from here, I was able to actually assess for a property what the income, expenses, and cash flow would be. Then I also used the median price on Rentometer for the rent estimate, which was actually pretty in line with what was going in the area. And I had my criteria that I desired $300 in cash flow. That was my minimum and I needed to make it. So in this case, I was looking for properties between 100 to 150K. The monthly payment would be around $900 to $1,000. So the units must rent between 600 to 700. All right, let's break that down a little bit more easy to digest. I'm trying to decide where to invest in Detroit. I know it's Detroit I want to invest in. I know what the range is for the property that I can afford. And now by looking at rent estimates, I know what the rent would need to be in order for me to get my cash flow. And I can now assess what properties would meet that criteria. And that's how I ultimately ended up in a specific neighborhood of only a couple blocks within Detroit. On day 3 of being in Detroit and enjoying the city, we actually got to go to the neighborhood that I had planned before even visiting to invest in. It was exactly what I had thought. I had gone up and down Google Street View multiple times. So as I walked through it for the first time in real life, I recognized the businesses that I saw. And seeing the house that was on the MLS that recently came to a price cut, I got to see a little bit more of some things that may need to be touched on, like the caulking on the outside and a little bit of the roof. But overall, I like the property from what I saw on the outside, and I decided to talk to my agent about it. For the team, I used Perrin, who is an excellent agent and was a relative referral, in order to hone in on neighborhoods in Detroit and help me put an offer down. The lawyer did not have one, and then when it came to mortgage, insurance, and inspector, I was able to get that all from the agent, as he had a lot of connections in the area and many years in the business. For property manager, I used Yelp. I only interviewed 2 people, and looking back on it, I'll put it in the reflection as well. I probably should have had more targeted questions, but I am satisfied with at least how I was able to talk to the property manager, and he was also an investor. Then the handyman comes directly from the property manager. My accountability partner, again, is Mama Herrera, who at this stage thinks every property is bad. She is not happy that I'm looking to invest out of state. Very against it. I tried to get her to read one of the Bigger Pockets books on investing out of state, and it somewhat sways her, but she's still very hesitant. But it's still good that I have someone who's not a yes man behind me. In total, only looked at one house, made an offer on that house that I showed you. It was originally listed as $150. The price changed the weekend that I was there to $132,900. It kept changing every week, so this was the price that really caught my eyes. It was in more of my ballpark. The seller's agent said there was another offer, so in this case we went up a little bit more to $135. I put 25% down, 1% escrow, 60 days to close, and I kept all contingencies. Now for due diligence, it went pretty well. I used the inspector that the agent suggested. He did say the chalking on the sides needs to be redone, very minor fixes around the house, and then he did use a tool to indicate that there at some point was probably water in the basement. Now at this stage, I probably should have taken this to a next level of researching this more, but of course, I looked for the easy way out, and I just said, okay, well, of the 100% of water, it only, on his indication, says 40%, so I should be okay. Then I negotiate with the seller for some of the credit in order to chalk the siding of the house. Now for closing. This is my first time signing documents out of state. It's December of 2019, and it was absolutely a nightmare. I doubt this will be an issue now just because of COVID, how much it's rapidly increased technology and making better solutions out of state and not in person, but it was terrible. So I had about 90 plus pages that needed to be signed and notarized. Thought it was pretty simple, right? I printed out the pages at work. I went to Chase where they have the ability to notarize documents, and she was a little bit confused on looking at documents for the first time from Detroit, but did the best that she could. So I sent this in, had to fax it over. The title company came back, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. We're going to have to delay your close. Then I decided to go to PNC. Same issue happens, and my close again is delayed. Mind you, I'm wiring money each time, so I'm paying to wire money, which is horrible. Finally, my mom's accountant, she was like, yeah, I could do it. I notarized, and I went to her. She was fantastic. She kept the title company on the phone while we were doing it to say, okay, do we need this part signed? And then she sent it over, everything through a fax, and then called again the title company to make sure everything was done correctly, so I didn't have to come back. And because of this, I did not close in 2019, and on paper, it looks like the property was purchased in January of 2020. Now, listing the property is really easy for property manager. I spoke with them actually just via email, and we talked about how there would be a limited pool of tenants because a lot of people aren't looking to move in the winter months, especially for those states up north. So we did talk about where the listing would be posted, make sure it would be on Zillow, Trulia, and the rest. In terms of level of involvement, I didn't want to be too involved, not necessary, so I just stated my criteria that I was looking for. and they handled it from there. Unforeseen circumstances happen all the time. However, I didn't expect it to happen this quickly. So in February of 2020 is when I was able to get tenants in the property. Then in only a couple weeks later, one of the tenants lost their job. So they were not able to pay rent for the first month or two after COVID, and then after that, not really on time. This was pretty frustrating as it ate into my cash flow, and I wasn't anticipating this. Then, remember that inspection that said there used to be some water in the basement? Well, the basement then floods. We find out that there's 2 breaks in the pipelines. One is able to be replaced right away, and the second is behind a barricade, which my apologies for not understanding every single detail of these things, but in total it just cost me $3,900 to get everything done because the barricade was some larger issue than the rest, and then also replacing the hole was a cost. And this pretty much wiped out my cash flow for the whole year of 2020 and at least partial of 2021. The quick question that you're probably thinking is, would you invest Detroit again based on some of these things that have happened? Yes, I would. I feel like a lot of it was just me not checking all the boxes. Well, for managing the property, right now it's on the property management portal, which is something I didn't ask the property manager about and I absolutely hate. So I'm very tech savvy. I've been in technology for about almost 7 years now, and this property management portal is something out of like 2010. The user interface isn't that good and I don't like using it at all. Tracking my monthly, I still use Stessa, and the property has appreciated. There is supposed to be a lot of development within that area, so I'm still very happy with this. And then lessons learned. You need to get a competent notarizer. That can never happen again where it's my fault that the closing gets delayed during the holidays multiple times. I'm running in and out of my office in order to get this done. Like, that can't happen again. So I learned to make sure I get the right notarizer the first time around. Then get a specialist based on the inspection report. This is the second time that an inspection report has told me some warning signs, and I decided to be cheap and not continue on to actually get them assessed. First time making the mistake is okay, you don't really know better. Second time is, and then if I do this for a third time, then I'm clearly just not listening. So this is something that I now have at the top of my attention. Then do not list the property for rent in down months. So because we rented it in the winter, there was a lot less tenants that we could choose from. And I think if I would have gotten a property where we lined it up, that I would be renting it out in the summer. Who knows? Maybe I could have had a larger pool of tenants and those who had more sturdy jobs that wouldn't have lost their jobs during COVID. Then in future lease documents, I set a clause now. If there is a pandemic and a tenant loses their job, they will be forgiven only for 1 single month and they're expected to pay afterwards. Next, choosing a property manager. I believe going forward, if I were to need another property manager, I would want to interview many, so maybe 4 to 5, and then have a set list of questions and actually grade their answers so that I can have a non-biased opinion as to which property manager I would go with, rather than which one gives me the most comfortability of speaking on the phone, because anyone could be a salesperson. Then loss of control is okay with built relationships and trust. This was such a great learning experience in buying a property out of state because I am not able to go drive to it if I want to. So I really had to learn it's okay to trust other people, build relationships, and that's how I'm going to be able to scale in the future when I grow my portfolio. This was a real open and honest view into my second deal. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've invested out of state, what are some of the things that you learned as well? And if you haven't already, please subscribe.